My name is Ryan, and I've been working the overnight shift at the Mall of America for a couple of weeks now. When I first applied, I thought it would be a simple job, just patrolling empty corridors and keeping vandals at bay. But there's a reason why this place requires security after dark, something hidden beneath the vast stores, roller coasters, and food courts. It's the kind of thing that isn't discussed, but everyone knows to fear. My first shift began with an orientation in the security office. Tom, the lead guard, was a wiry man with tired eyes and a clipboard. He handed me a laminated sheet listing 6 rules. Mall of America night shift rules. If you spot a child wandering alone after midnight, do not engage. Report it over the radio and maintain your distance. Between 1:15 a.m. and 1:45 a.m., steer clear of the east wing. Disable any cameras facing that area. If carousel music begins playing, do not investigate. Head to the nearest exit and wait for it to stop. Never make eye contact with the mannequins in the Urban Outfitters window after 2 a.m. Should you encounter a single red balloon tied to a bench, pop it immediately. If you cross paths with the drifter, remain absolutely still and hold your breath until it leaves. I chuckled after reading the list, expecting it to be some sort of initiation prank. Tom didn't share my amusement. Take it seriously, he warned. This mall has a history. Stick to the rules, and you'll be fine. Disregard them, and, well, you'll find out. The first few nights were uneventful. I completed my rounds, checked the locks, and recorded minor issues like a malfunctioning light in the food court or a flickering screen in the movie theater. The rules felt like a joke, a way to spook the new guy. That belief changed on my third shift. Around 1:30 a.m., I unknowingly drifted into the east wing. My radio buzzed with static, and an eerie chill crept down my spine. I froze, recalling rule number 2. Quickly turning back, I retraced my steps, but the temperature seemed to drop with each movement. Then I heard it, footsteps. Heavy, dragging footsteps, like soggy boots scraping against tile. I didn't dare glance back. My pulse raced as I sped up. The static in my radio grew louder, overwhelming my thoughts, but I pressed on until I crossed into another section. The warmth returned, and the footsteps ceased. Back in the security office, I confronted Tom about it. He merely shook his head. You're lucky this time. Next time, check your watch. By my 5th shift, I felt confident. That confidence crumbled when I discovered the red balloon. It was roughly 3 a.m., and I was patrolling near the indoor amusement park. A single red balloon floated gently, tied to a bench near the Lego store. My muscles tensed, fingers gripping my flashlight. Rule number 5 rang in my head, pop it immediately. Moving cautiously, the harsh fluorescent lights casting deep shadows, I approached the balloon. It appeared normal until I heard soft giggling. I whipped my flashlight around, nothing. The giggling faded, replaced by a whisper I couldn't quite decipher. My hand shook as I drew my pocket knife and punctured the balloon. It burst with a sharp pop, and the whispers stopped. The heaviness in the air lifted, and the sensation of being watched disappeared. I cut my patrol short. Tom didn't question my decision. The balloons are signals, he muttered cryptically. They show who doesn't belong. The mannequins were next. On my 7th shift, I made the mistake of glancing at the Urban Outfitters window after 2 a.m. They stood there as usual, frozen in trendy poses. But something felt off. Their plastic features appeared too defined, their eyes too realistic. I averted my gaze, but when I looked again, they had moved, slightly. One tilted its head toward me, and another had shifted its hand, pointing in my direction. My chest tightened as I remembered Rule 4. I kept my eyes down and backed away cautiously, resisting the urge to turn around even as I heard faint creaks behind me. Back in the office, I reviewed the camera footage. The mannequins were back in their usual places. Tom was waiting. They're curious, he said. Don't give them a reason to notice you. The final rule became crucial on my 10th shift. While patrolling the east wing well before 1:15 a.m., the lights flickered, and a heavy dread settled in my gut. Then I saw it, a tall, shadowed figure with an erratic, shifting form. The Drifter. Its movements were unnatural, glitching like a broken video feed. My instincts screamed to run, but I remembered rule number 6, stay still, hold your breath. I stood frozen, inhaling and holding it in. The Drifter came closer, its featureless eyes fixed on mine. My lungs burned, but I dared not exhale. After what seemed like forever, it moved away, dissolving into the shadows. Only then did I collapse, gasping for air. When I got back to the office, Tom gave me a rare nod of recognition. Not bad, kid. Not everyone gets through that. By now, I had stopped doubting the rules. They were the only thing keeping me alive in this haunted mall. But the uneasy thought that the Drifter would come back refused to leave my mind. The 11th night started like all the others. I had my coffee, my flashlight, and an ever-growing sense of unease gnawing at me. The mall was unnervingly quiet, the type of silence that makes every sound feel amplified. Tom was unusually quiet too, his eyes darting nervously over the monitors. "Something's off tonight," he muttered. "Stay sharp." I nodded, tightening my grip on the flashlight. The rules were burned into my brain at this point, my only anchor in this madness. And tonight, I feared they would be pushed to their limits. Just past midnight, I noticed something strange on the monitors. A section of the mall I'd never patrolled before appeared on one of the feeds. A dimly lit storefront with dust-covered windows. I frowned, positive that store didn't exist. Picking up my radio, I called Tom. "Hey, there's a shop near the West Wing. It's not on my patrol map. Should I check it out?" Tom's voice came through sharp and clear. "No. That's not part of the mall. Stay away." "Not part of the mall? But it's showing up on the cameras." "Listen, Ryan. Just don't go." The urgency in his tone made my stomach twist, but curiosity is dangerous. I told myself I'd just take a quick look, just to see why Tom was so afraid. When I arrived at the West Wing, the store was exactly as it looked on the screen. The air around it felt thick, and the familiar hum of the fluorescent lights seemed distant. The dirty glass obscured any view inside, but the door, an old wooden relic that clashed with the mall's sleek design, was slightly open. Against my better judgment, I stepped in. Inside, it felt like another world. The air was damp, heavy with the scent of mildew. The walls stretched far into the darkness, lined with shelves stocked with oddities, faded photos, rusted jewelry, and eerie dolls that appeared to be decades old. No labels, no prices, just forgotten relics. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, but the silence in the store felt suffocating. Then I heard it, a whisper, faint but unmistakable. "Leave." I froze, heart pounding. The whisper came again, louder this time. "You shouldn't be here." I turned to go, but the door slammed shut before I reached it. My flashlight flickered as darkness pressed in from all sides. Panic set in as I banged on the door, shouting for help. The whispers intensified, layering into an unsettling chorus of sorrow and anger. I thought of the rules. None of them mentioned anything about this place, but the overwhelming sensation of being watched reminded me of Tom's warnings. Dropping to my knees, I covered my ears and whispered, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disturb you." Silence. When I opened my eyes, the door was ajar again, and the suffocating presence had lifted. I didn't stick around to ask questions. I ran back to the office without looking back. Tom didn't ask what happened. His expression said enough. He slid a glass of water across the desk and simply said, "Don't." Later that night, as I tried to calm down, I heard it, the distant, haunting chime of the carousel. My blood ran cold. Rule number 3, don't investigate. Get to the exit and wait for it to stop. The carousel, usually a cheerful centerpiece for families, was supposed to stay silent after dark. but now its eerie tune drifted through the deserted halls. I grabbed my radio. "Tom, the carousel's playing. I'm heading for the exit." "Good," he responded. "And don't look back." Each step felt like dragging through mud. The tune warped, transforming into something sinister. The air thickened, pressing down on me with a suffocating weight. As I reached the exit and pushed through the doors, the music ceased instantly, leaving behind an oppressive silence. I leaned against the wall outside, gasping for breath. Tom joined me soon after, his face grim. "They're watching you," he said. "The mall knows you broke the rules. It won't let that go." The 12th night felt different. The air was heavier, the darkness deeper. Tom had called in sick, leaving me to navigate the eerie expanse alone. While making my rounds, I stuck to well-lit areas and avoided the East Wing entirely. As I crossed the food court, a sound halted me, fabric brushing softly against tile. My flashlight swept across the tables and chairs, but everything appeared normal. Then I saw it, something dark darting just beyond the flashlight's reach. It moved quickly, skittering from one table to another. My pulse raced as I stepped back, my radio crackling with static. "Stay calm," I whispered. "Follow the rules." But none of the rules prepared me for this. The figure stopped beneath a table near the Chick-fil-A. It was hard to make out, but it looked wrong, too jagged, too angular, like it was stitched together from broken shadows. My hands shook as I radioed in. "Tom, it's Ryan. I'm in the food court. There's something here. I don't know what it is." Static crackled in my earpiece, followed by an eerie whisper that sent a shiver down my spine. The words were indistinct, but the tone was unmistakably mocking. Without warning, the shadowy figure lunged at me. I stumbled backward, losing my grip on the flashlight, which clattered to the ground. The beam flickered wildly, throwing chaotic shadows on the walls. When I reached to retrieve it, the figure had vanished. I didn't stick around to investigate. I bolted back to the security office, slamming the door shut behind me. Yet, the whispering persisted, echoing in my ears. I couldn't tell if it was real or a trick of my frayed nerves. By night 13, paranoia had taken hold. Tom was still absent, and the mall felt increasingly hostile. During my patrol near the indoor theme park, my heart sank at the sight, another red balloon tied to a bench by the roller coaster. Rule number 5 was clear: pop it immediately. But this time, the balloon wasn't alone. A figure stood beside it, unnervingly still. It resembled a man, but something was off, its frame too tall, its limbs unnaturally long, hanging limply at its sides. Its head tilted slightly, as if studying the balloon. My grip tightened on the flashlight as I approached. The figure didn't react to my presence. Stopping a few feet away, my heart pounded against my ribs. The air around me thickened, suffocating, like the tension before a storm. Forcing myself to focus, I reached into my pocket, gripping my knife and stepping forward. The moment the blade pierced the balloon, the figure's head snapped toward me, its movements stiff and mechanical. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. The balloon burst with a deafening crack, and the figure disappeared, gone in an instant. The suffocating weight lifted, but I was left shaken. My hands trembled as I staggered back to the office. Night 14 brought me back to the Urban Outfitters display. I hadn't dared look at the mannequins since my first encounter, but tonight, an unshakable sense of being watched made my skin crawl. My flashlight's reflection danced across the glass, and against my better judgment, I glanced up. They had moved. One had pressed its hand against the glass, its blank face tilted as if observing me. Another mannequin had turned its head, its hollow eyes boring into mine. My pulse spiked. The faint sound of creaking joints echoed, followed by a soft tapping on the glass. I didn't linger. My feet moved faster and faster, almost running. Back in the office, I checked the cameras. The mannequins were back in their original poses, as if they'd never shifted. But I knew better. They were watching. the next night brought an ominous dread I couldn't shake. I avoided the East Wing entirely, sticking to brighter areas and keeping my patrol short. But while crossing the main atrium, the lights flickered, and that familiar sense of dread washed over me. The drifter was back. It emerged from the shadows near the atrium fountain, its form glitching unnaturally, like a distorted video. My breath caught as its head snapped toward me, its vacant eyes locking onto mine. Rule number 6 echoed in my head: stay perfectly still and hold your breath. I froze, inhaling sharply and holding it in. The drifter's movements were erratic, its limbs contorting in grotesque ways as it crept closer. It stopped inches from my face, its icy presence seeping into my skin. My lungs burned, but I dared not exhale. After an agonizing eternity, it drifted back into the shadows. Collapsing to the floor, I gasped for air, hands trembling. Back in the office, I noticed a note sitting on the desk. It hadn't been there before. The handwriting was jagged and desperate. You're getting too close. Stop asking questions. My mind reeled. Who had left it? Tom? Or something else? By the next night, the terror felt almost routine. The rules were ingrained in me now, but nothing could have prepared me for the forgotten store. Tom handed me a new mall map during our briefing. Management wants us to check every corner tonight. Follow this route closely, he said, his voice uneasy. He hesitated before adding, there's a section not on the public maps. If you see it, don't go inside. The map was meticulously detailed, every store, restroom, and maintenance closet carefully labeled. Near the center, an unmarked square was circled in red ink. I pointed to it. What is this? Tom hesitated. We call it the Forgotten Store. Nobody knows how it got there. Just make sure it stays locked. The shift was uneventful until I approached the central wing. With each step, the air grew heavier, and the usual hum of fluorescent lights felt distant. Turning a corner, I saw it, an unlit storefront with no signage, its glass doors coated in grime. My radio crackled to life. Tom's voice came through, distorted. You're close, aren't you? Don't linger. I stared at the darkened store, an eerie chill creeping down my spine. The glass reflected the dim mall lights, but revealed nothing of what lay inside. Against my better judgment, I reached for the door handle. Locked. Relief washed over me as I turned to leave. Then I heard it, a faint knock from within. I froze, gripping my flashlight. Another knock followed, louder this time, reverberating down the empty corridor. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but curiosity held me in place. Lifting my flashlight, I peered through the glass. At first, I saw only darkness. Then, a shadow shifted. Two pale hands pressed against the inside of the glass. Backing away, I grabbed my radio. Tom, there's something inside the store. His reply was immediate and firm. Do not engage. Get back to the office. Now. The hands slid down the glass, leaving streaks. A faint whisper seeped through the cracks in the door, in a language I couldn't understand but filled with an undeniable urgency. As I stepped away, the whisper grew louder, more insistent. Each syllable sent chills down my spine. My flashlight flickered, and the air turned icy. A shadow moved again, closer this time. It wasn't human, its proportions were all wrong, its movements jerky and unnatural. My stomach churned as it pressed its blurred, shifting face against the glass, like smoke caught in a jar. I ran. Back in the office, I slammed the door shut, chest heaving. Tom was waiting, his face pale but calm. You saw it, didn't you? I nodded, breathless. What is that thing? What's inside that store? Tom sighed, rubbing his temples. We don't know. The store's been here as long as the mall itself, but it's not on any official plans. Every so often, someone reports seeing something inside. That's why we keep it locked. Why not seal it off for good? I asked. Tom shook his head. We tried. The doors always come back. Just stick to the rules and stay away. The memory of the store haunted me throughout the night. The whispers echoed in my ears, even in the supposed safety of the office. Around 3 a.m., my radio crackled again. This time, it wasn't Tom's voice. "Help, please." The voice was weak, barely a whisper, but unmistakably human. I grabbed the radio. "Who is this? Where are you?" The reply was garbled, but one word came through clear: store. My blood ran cold. Tom was asleep in the corner, his head resting on his arms. I considered waking him but decided against it. Instead, I checked the cameras. The feed for the central wing was static. Swallowing hard, I grabbed my flashlight and ventured out. The mall was unnervingly silent, the faint hum of the lights the only sound. As I neared the forgotten store, I saw the door was now ajar, a soft pulsing light emanating from within, casting shifting shadows across the tiled floor. "Hello?" I called, my voice trembling. The whispers returned, louder this time, curling around me like a cold wind. Against my better judgment, I stepped inside. The flickering light revealed glimpses of the interior, shelves stocked with strange objects, walls etched with symbols that seemed to shift and change. In the center of the room stood a figure, its back to me. It turned slowly, and my flashlight flickered out. I was trapped in the oppressive darkness, my breath shallow, ears straining for any sound. My flashlight was dead, and my phone offered only a brief flicker before succumbing to the blackness. The air pressed in around me. Somewhere in the distance, I heard it, a faint shuffling followed by something wet dragging across the floor. Panic gripped me, but I forced myself to stay still. The rules hadn't prepared me for this, but Tom's advice echoed in my head: stay calm. Always stay calm. "Hello?" I whispered. The dragging sound halted instantly, replaced by suffocating silence. Then, a whisper, so close, it felt like it was in my ear. "You shouldn't be here." My heart pounded. The voice was neither male nor female, neither entirely human nor completely inhuman. It carried a weight that made my knees weak. "Who are you?" I stammered. No response came. Instead, the room grew colder, and a faint blue light seeped through the cracks of a door I hadn't noticed before. The forgotten store wasn't on any map of the mall, but it seemed this door led deeper into whatever nightmare was concealed here. Against my instincts, I stepped forward. My hand brushed the icy metal handle. As I turned it, the whispering intensified, overlapping voices, murmuring fragmented sentences beyond comprehension. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow hallway lined with mirrors. The soft blue glow beckoned me. I hesitated. The mirrors felt wrong. I couldn't see my reflection, only faint outlines of shadowy figures standing eerily still, as if watching me. My legs carried me forward, step by step. The corridor stretched longer than it should have, the glow intensifying with each step. At the end stood an ornate desk, and behind it sat Tom, or at least, something that looked like him. His smile was too wide, his eyes like black voids reflecting nothing. "You've done well, Ryan," the figure said, its voice unnervingly smooth. "Better than most." "What is this place?" I whispered. "This is where you make a choice," it replied, ignoring my question. "You follow the rules, survived longer than most. But there's one final rule, one they never told you." A chill shot through me. "What rule?" Tom, or whatever it really was, leaned in, folding its hands with an unsettling calm. "When you reach the end, you have a choice: leave this place behind or stay and take my place." My head swam. "Take your place? What does that even mean?" The figure gestured broadly around us. "The mall needs a guardian. Someone to uphold the rules. Someone to keep them out." Its grin widened unnervingly. "It's simple: walk away and let someone else take your place, or stay and become part of all this." I stared at the desk, my thoughts racing. If I left, someone new would come in, unknowingly stepping into this nightmare. But if I stayed, what would I become? Another version of Tom? Something worse, like the mannequins, or the drifter. Why me? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. You've proven yourself, it said with finality. The mall has chosen you. The eerie blue glow surrounding us dimmed, and the gravity of the decision weighed heavily on me. I thought about the rules, the countless close calls. Could I really let someone else go through what I'd survived? Could I live with that? I took a deep, shaky breath, my choice clear. I choose to leave, I said, my voice shaking but determined. The figure's smile faltered, turning hollow, almost disappointed. Very well, it murmured. But the mall does not forget. Before I could question it, the light around me flared, overwhelming and warm. When I blinked my eyes open, I was standing outside the Mall of America, the soft glow of the morning sun creeping over the parking lot. My uniform had vanished, replaced by my regular clothes. My hands fumbled for my phone, 6:15 a.m. My shift had ended hours ago. I didn't dare look back as I walked away. In the days that followed, I quit without explanation, blocked Tom's number, and tried to push it all out of my mind. But at night, I hear it, the distant melody of the carousel, drifting just beyond my apartment walls. And every time I close my eyes, I see it, the desolate corridors, the mannequins, the drifter. The mall doesn't forget. And neither can I.